Welcome back to Scale Model Kit Review. This is your host, Steve. I'm super excited to be working with Eagle Moss to bring you the Build Your Own DeLorean from Back to the Future. This is issue number 4. Welcome back. Here's the magazine for issue 4, and this time these are the parts that come with it. This time we get to build the Mr. Fusion core. I'll be right back. We'll get a closer look at these parts contained within this blister pack, and then we'll assemble this issue. Let's look at the magazine. Let's look at the magazine for issue 4. This is a fantastic publication. It's the whole reason why you subscribe to it, so you can read the articles about Back to the Future and the DeLorean itself. Of course, we get a listing of all the parts that came included with this and the table of contents. First thing they do, they take us through how to assemble issue 4, and we'll do that here shortly. You can see there's a lot of steps involved here. Looks like we got at least 2 steps on one page and then the rest of the steps on the following page, and we continue on. So we've got a lot to do with this issue. It should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. And then after that, we got an article about the real Doc Brown. And these aren't very long reads. They're very short and brief and concise. And I think they're just very enjoyable to read. Look at the photographs that are contained within this, showing us close-ups of the DeLorean studio model there, or the studio car. And then more about the salvaging parts for this. Designing Mr. Fusion, an article about that, and looking for the doc. You know, as you know, if you follow all these movies from Back to the Future, they were a lot of fun to watch, a lot of laughs, and article about Einstein. And of course they give us a preview of what issue 5 is going to give us, which is the front left suspension. So I'll be right back. We'll go ahead and assemble issue 4. Here are the parts contained in the blister pack. The only part that's metal is the bodywork itself. Next to that we have the Mr. Fusion hatch. Above that we have the reactor disc, which is clear. We have the reactor disc number 3. This was the reactor disc number 4. We have Mr. Fusion halves, left and right. We have some clear chamber pieces. We have a hinge, a couple of hinge pieces. We have a red hinge itself right here. We have the reactor disc. We have also the other part of the chamber. They gave us 18 AP screws, they gave us 6 CP screws, and they gave us these real tiny springs. There's 2 of them in this bag right here. So we'll go ahead and start assembling this, and I'll be right back. Okay, we'll install the fusion core. 2 parts here. You'll notice that there's a little tab right there. That lines up with that opening right there. Put it in. It's supposed to click in just a little bit. And we'll turn it. And that's what it looks like. Okay, I'm going to assemble these 2 parts together using the 2 AP screws that are on top there. Now in order to line it up, you'll notice that the 2 AP screws go into these 2 holes right here, these smaller holes, and they line up with the smaller holes on the reactor assembly here. On top is an alignment tab, and that's a little bit of a larger hole, and that should line up that way just fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn this one over and insert it onto the alignment tab, just like that. Now I'm going to get my 2 AP screws here, and I am going to screw it down. There's one, and the next one. And there you have it. We'll go ahead and put the clear piece on, and it calls for these very tiny AP screws to be used. Well, they're too small to keep it secure, they just don't work. So we're going to use these AP screws instead. They're a little larger. Yep, that seems to be the ticket. There we go, and that's all done. Next we assemble the 2 halves of the shell core. We'll flip this over like this, line up the holes just like such. And they want us to use AP screws again, so we will do that. First one in. Second one in. And the last one. And there you have it. Next we assemble these 2 chamber components and their clear parts. Simply we'll line them up here. And next we take the fusion core assembly, and it just seems to go in on that notch right there. On the bottom there's a hole, and it goes in that notch like such and slides in place. There we go. Then we take the other clear piece, the cap, we put that on top. Just like that. Okay, next we're going to install the hinge assembly on the top hatch of the fusion core. First we need to flip this over, and what we'll go ahead and do is we'll take a screw and we'll start it first in one of the holes. And this would be an AP screw. And we just want it coming through just a little bit, just like that. That way we can get the hinge lined up, the holes on the hinge here lined up. Just like that. And then we can screw it in. There we go. We'll do the other side. And it will just line right up there. Perfect. Now we can we just loosen these up a little bit, a little too tight. There we go. A little bit better. And we'll put that on the fusion chamber. We'll line up the holes there. If you'll see, they're showing 2 holes here. And we got the single hole on the other side, and that's the one we want to line up to. Okay, now we've been using AP screws for this. We'll continue with that. Inserts into that. And there we go. And it should open up. It does. Next, we mount Mr. Fusion on top, and it has a locating pin along with the small locating pin hole there and the cap on top. So it simply just goes down on top of that like that. Once again, we got to use an AP screw to secure it. And I think it doesn't quite fit flush there. So I'm going to go ahead and file this down just a little bit. Should be good right there, and we'll install that a little bit better flush mounted. And there we go. All set with that. Alright, next we're going to install this other hinge assembly, and it's going to go together kind of like how I have it laid out. If you look here, you can see it's kind of looks like almost like a lobster claw on the bottom there. That's going to be on the bottom. And then the black part here has the little hole cut out for the hinge. That's going to go line up with the other hole cut out just like that. Now we're going to use these tiny CP screws again. And we hope we can line it up here. And I got one of them in. Flip it over and do the other side. And these are tiny. And they are in. I was lucky on that one. So that's how that looks. Next, this gets mounted to the fusion core, to the other side that we saw. And so basically there's an alignment tab right there, and then the hole to put the screw in. So that simply just lays down on that, just like that. And we'll put a screw in here. Looks like an AP screw. Let's get the AP screw in there. There it goes. Okay, and then this closes down like that, and then it locks in like that. There we go. Alright, the next step is going to be really fiddly. We got to put these little springs and these CP screws on that hinge assembly. And those springs go on those notches right there, on those tabs that stick out, and then the screws go in through some holes to keep the springs in place. So that's going to be a little tough to show you on camera. I'll do my best to do so. The instructions say we got to use DP screws. I'm not aware of any DP screws that I've received with any of these issues right now. So what I'm going to use are the CP screws. Okay, so I got one of them on right there. And I'm going to do my best to get the screw in. Okay, that is in. You can just barely see it there. Now I'm going to get the other side in. And that's in right there. Let me get that screw in. Alright, so the springs are in there. Alright, so I'm amazed I didn't lose those springs or those screws. So that is complete. Next we're going to mount the Mr. Fusion reactor to the base. Turn this over first. And we want to make sure that the hinge is actually facing this side right here, that red hinge. And the 3 holes will line up just like that. We're going to be using 3 AP screws for this. And going to get them all started for now. And that's my dog, Bam. He's a half pit bull, half dachshund. He's my guard dog. He's about a 55-pound wiener dog. And here we go. And this completes issue 4. Stay tuned for issue 5. In issue 5, we will assemble the front left suspension. I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I did. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the Eagle Moss Build Your Own Delorean. I'll put a link in the description below on how you can do so. Also, if you're a first-time viewer to my channel, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for latest updates. Thanks again for watching. I enjoyed this very much. Happy modeling, everybody.